under direct material, what comes under indirect material. So the direct material cost is one which can conveniently be identified and allocated to a cost unit. So cotton used in a textile material becomes part of the finished good and is a direct material cost. However, the nails that are used in furniture or the thread that is used in stitching garment, these materials do not form or cannot be easily identified with individual cost unit, and hence they are counted as indirect materials. So your lubricating oil, grease, sandpaper, these are all facilitating the production, but they do not become part of the direct material. They are the indirect materials used in production of the final product. Similarly, when I talk about direct labor cost includes the cost that is paid to the workers, wages that are paid to the workers who are directly involved in converting the raw material into the finished product. On the other hand, all charges or all payments that are made to individuals who are assisting or helping in production operations or selling and distribution operations become part of the indirect labor. So the salary of the office staff, watchman, or a supervisor will come under indirect labor, and then expenses, direct expenses which can be directly associated with a particular job or cost unit, and indirect expenses which cannot be directly linked to a particular job, process, or work, and they are common to all the cost units. So your advertising cost, your depreciation, all these form part of the indirect expenses of the firm. Your indirect expenses sum total to overheads, and they are further classified into production, administration, selling, and distribution overheads. Whereas all the direct costs together, they combine to give you the prime cost of the firm.
मैम एक बार आप एक्सपेंसेस में डायरेक्ट डायरेक्ट में डिफरेंस रिपीट कर सकते हो?
हाँ, जो डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस होते हैं वो आप पर्टिकुलर कॉस्ट सेंटर या कॉस्ट यूनिट या एक पर्टिकुलर जॉब से लिंक कर सकते हो। जैसे कि आपने हायरिंग पे एक मशीन ली फॉर प्रोडक्शन, टेम्पररी इंक्रीज हुआ इन दी डिमांड, and therefore you had to take an additional machine on rental basis. So this becomes part of direct expenses. If you are saying the production of medicine और उसमें आपको कुछ पेटेंट लेने पड़े, so the cost of those patent rights will be part of the direct expenses which are attributable to the final product. On the other hand, जो रेंट है फैक्ट्री का, वो पूरी फैक्ट्री का है, वो एक पर्टिकुलर कॉस्ट सेंटर पे अलॉट नहीं हो सकता। सिर्फ प्रोडक्शन एरिया पे रेंट नहीं आप पे करे, जो गोडाउन है फैक्ट्री में, जो ऑफिस रन कर रहा है साथ में, उसमें भी रेंट का एलोकेशन होता है। तो रेंट जो है पूरी प्रेमाइसेस का है, अब उसमें प्रोडक्शन भी हो रही है, उसमें ऑफिस का भी काम हो रहा है, उसमें स्टोरेज भी हो रही है। So that becomes indirect expense. Similarly, जो एडवर्टाइजिंग है, आप आपकी फैक्ट्री में मल्टीपल चीजें प्रोड्यूस हो रही हैं, शर्ट्स भी प्रोड्यूस हो रहे हैं, बटन्स भी प्रोड्यूस हो रहे हैं, एंड से ट्राउजर भी मैन्युफैक्चर हो रहे हैं। जो एडवर्टाइजिंग कॉस्ट है वो एक पर्टिकुलर जॉब या एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट से लिंक नहीं हो सकती। जब एडवर्टाइजिंग हो रही है तो पूरी फर्म की हो रही है। दैट बिकम्स इनडायरेक्ट एक्सपेंस फॉर द cost purposes. Is this clear?
यस मैम। मैम वन मोर थिंग मैम, कॉस्ट
Yeah.
यूनिट्स क्या होते हैं?
Cost units मैंने last time बताया था, एक मिनट, I'll go back to that slide. So cost units. After this. Cost units are units of production. So जब हम हॉस्पिटल की बात करते हैं तो पर बेड कॉस्ट कैलकुलेट होती है. Similarly, when we talk about the say the cost of running transportation, public transportation, तो वो per kilometer basis पे cost होती है. या say a ton of coal, ton of steel, these all are cost units for production purposes और manufacturing industries. Similarly, for service industries, जैसे मैंने आपको example दिया कि जो पैसेंजर पर किलोमीटर जो कॉस्ट आ रही है वो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में यूज होगी या बेड पर डे नर्सिंग होम में या होटल्स में यूज होगा. दीज आर दी कॉस्ट यूनिट्स विच आर considered in measurement of cost. So it is basically the unit of product or service to which cost is allocated या जिसके लिए हम cost ascertain कर रहे हैं. तो सीमेंट के लिए कॉस्ट यूनिट टन्स में होता है. केमिकल्स के लिए गैलन्स में हो सकता है. देन फॉर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इट इज किलोवाट आवर. ट्रांसपोर्ट में पैसेंजर किलोमीटर. ऑटोमोबाइल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फर्म है तो वो अपना कॉस्ट कैसे कैलकुलेट करेगी पर कार या पर स्कूटर जो वो प्रोड्यूस कर रही है उसका कॉस्ट एंड सो ऑन.
Okay, ma'am.
ओके. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन क्लास? So I will now introduce the concept of cost sheet to you. So this is one practical aspect which we are covering in this unit. So cost sheet, just go to the slide on cost sheet. Yes. So cost sheet is a document which provides the detailed cost of a cost center or a cost unit. It classifies and analyzes the parts or the components of cost of a product. So, to determine the selling price for a particular product, we need a proper statement of what costs have been incurred in production of this product. So, the total cost and cost per unit of the goods produced can be calculated by preparation of the cost sheet. So, it is giving you different elements of cost, it is helping you in fixing of the selling prices. And then if you want to do a comparative study of the current period cost with the previous period cost, then cost sheet will help you. So it is a statement designed to show the output of a particular accounting period along with the breakup of all the costs. So all direct and indirect cost will appear in the cost sheet. This is a simple format for cost sheet. So I told you that all the direct cost, that is direct material, direct labor and direct expenses, they sum total to give us the prime cost. After that, when we add the factory overheads, that is all the indirect costs related to the factory operations, then we get the factory cost or the works cost. तो अब आप उसमें देख रहे हो कि जो वर्क्स ओवरहेड हैं that basically means the factory overheads and those include indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses related to factory. After that, I am adding all the administrative overheads in the factory cost. और जब मैं administrative overheads add कर रही हूँ तो मुझे क्या मिल रहा है next element of cost which is the cost of production. Cost of production includes all the administrative overheads, which means the indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses related to office and administration. And then You have दी सेलिंग एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ओवरहेड्स। तो अब जो भी आपका कॉस्ट है प्रमोटिंग सेल्स का या डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ फिनिश्ड गुड्स का, उससे रिलेटेड जो भी एक्सपेंसेस लेबर या मटेरियल कॉस्ट है दैट विल कम अंडर सेलिंग एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ओवरहेड्स, एंड व्हेन एडेड टू कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन दे गिव यू द कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स। Cost of sales is the cost of manufacturing the product. Now, in this value, we add the profit margin to get the final selling price or final sales value for the product. This is a simple format of cost sheet which includes the breakup of cost into one. First, the prime cost, which is direct material, labor, and direct expenses. Second, the works cost, which will include all the production overheads in the form of indirect material. तो जो आपका मैंने आपको एग्जांपल्स दिए थे, ऑयल है, ग्रीस है, या कोई कॉटन वेस्ट है जो आपका फैक्ट्री प्रोडक्शन में यूज हो रहा है, दैट इज इनडायरेक्ट मटेरियल. Indirect labor in the factory is the wages of the factory watchman या sweeper जो है फैक्ट्री में, जो सुपरवाइजर है, उन सब से रिलेटेड जो लेबर एक्सपेंसेस हैं, those are your indirect labor. And then factory expenses or indirect expenses, the rent of the factory, depreciation of the plant, insurance of factory building, all these will come under indirect expenses related to factory. Similarly, when I write down administrative overheads, these are office and administrative overheads, sum total of indirect material related to the office. So the stationery that is being used in the office is part of indirect material, office overhead का part बनेगा. Then indirect labor related to office is the salary of the office staff, salary of the managing director, directors of the company. Indirect expenses related to office will be rent of the office building, telephone expenses, depreciation of office furniture. उसी तरह जब सेलिंग एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ओवरहेड्स को हम डिवाइड करते हैं इन इनडायरेक्ट मटेरियल, वी हैव ऑल द पैकेजिंग मटेरियल and stationery used in the sales office. Then indirect labor related to selling and distribution will be salary of the sales manager, salary of the driver of the delivery van. And indirect expense related to selling and distribution will be advertising expense, traveling expenses, any insurance which is taken for goods which are in transit, in transportation. जैसे अगर आप कोई शिपमेंट भेजते हो तो उसके लिए आप इंश्योरेंस लेते हो और मरीन इंश्योरेंस लेते हो, दैट विल बिकम पार्ट ऑफ सेलिंग एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. Any bad debts that are incurred are also part of indirect expenses and come under selling and distribution overheads. So now, apart from this, this is a simple format. I'll do a detailed format with you after this, but there are certain costs which are certain items which do not form part of the cost. So these you need to remember. These items are excluded when we calculate the cost of production, and these are one, the cash discount that is given on the sales of the final product. So cash discount is, say, if the customer is making prompt cash payment on the finished goods or goods purchased, then a cash discount might be given. This will not become part of the cost of production. Similarly, any interest paid, goodwill written off, these are all financial expenses. तो ये फिर आपकी cost sheet में कहीं पर भी include नहीं होंगे. Provision for bad debts, any provision will not come in the cost sheet. Any income tax paid, any donations, or any profit or loss on sale of goods won't come in the cost sheet. Okay, let's start with a very simple question which will explain you as to which item of cost will come under which head. So you can see this question on your screen. You are given a number of expenses and you have been asked to prepare a statement for each of the expenses. So you need to pick up from all the items given what all will come under selling expenses, which all expenses will come under administration, and which cost will come under distribution expenses, and expenses which need to be excluded from the cost. So let's start with this question. So we'll pick up each of the expenses one by one. A, we are calculating these selling expenses. So here the distribution and selling expenses have been taken separately. And the excluded expenses. So let's take up each of the expenses one by one. We'll start with the first expense, which is interest on debentures. Now, interest on debentures are फाइनेंशियल कॉस्ट फॉर दी फर्म. फाइनेंशियल कॉस्ट क्योंकि अगर फर्म ने कोई डिबेंचर्स इशू करे हैं और जिन्होंने वो डिबेंचर्स परचेज करे हैं, जो डिबेंचर होल्डर्स हैं, तो फर्म को उसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट पे करना पड़ता है. शेयर्स के ऊपर डिविडेंड पे होता है, डिबेंचर्स के ऊपर इंटरेस्ट पे होता है. That is not part of the cost of production. That is not related to cost of production in any ways. It is a purely financial charge related to financing structure of the firm, and hence the interest on debentures will come under the excluded cost. So this is 1200. This comes here. Next we move to agent's commission. Now agent is related to the sales operations of the firm. Agent is basically the sales agent who is selling goods on commission basis. So the commission of the agent, sales agent, will come under the selling expenses. Okay, then warehouse wages, and then you also have another related expense which is warehouse repairs. Why is warehouse used by the firm? What is the purpose of warehouse?
Storage of goods.
Storage of finished goods, or again it can also be used for storage of raw material as well, but generally used for storage of finished goods. And these finished goods are stored there for enabling their further distribution to the customers. So इसलिए जो भी warehouse wages हैं या warehouse repairs हैं, they will become part of the distribution expenses for the firm. So I'm writing them here: warehouse wages and warehouse repairs. जब हम कॉस्ट शीट बनाएंगे तब ये सब इकट्ठे आ जाएंगे, सेलिंग और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, टू कैलकुलेट द फाइनल कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, फाइनल कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स, सॉरी, प्रोडक्शन तो ऑफिस एक्सपेंसेस के बाद होती है. ओके, देन इज लाइटिंग ऑफ ऑफिस. Very simple, lighting of office will come under the office and administration expenses. So lighting of office, this comes here. Then after this, you are given office salaries again under the office and administration expenses. Directors remuneration. Directors remuneration is again indirect labor related to office. So this comes here. Traveling expenses of salesmen. Now, salesmen related to selling expenses. So, rent rates and insurance of warehouse. Warehouse से related जो भी expense होगा वो distribution में आएगा. So, rent rate and insurance. After that, insurance of office will come under administration expenses. Lighting of warehouse. Lighting expenses हैं 270. You come here. Then printing and stationery is again related to office. ₹1,500 come under office expenses. Then trade magazines. Now these might be used by the office staff. They might include the quotations or the price that are quoted by your competitors, and they are used for the office. They'll actually come under the office expenditure. So I am writing it here. Magazines, and the amount is ₹70. Okay. Now after this, donations are not related to the production process, so they come under the items excluded. Then next is bank charges. Bank charges again not included here. Financial expense है. Bank charges of 12 कितना है 100 will come here. Cash discount, I have already told you, cash discount will not come in the cost sheet. And last entry is on bad debts. Bad debts are part of your selling expenses. They are related to the credit sales that are made by the firm. This 300 comes here. So we are done with all the expenses. So now you can total them up and we'll get all the individual expenses. How much are selling expenses coming to? 8,810.
Ma'am, 3880.
Okay, thank you. 3880. And please tell me how much are the administrative expenses coming to?
4400.
4,400 and the excluded expenses come to
Ma'am, 2220.
2220. I'm writing this here. This is the total of the excluded expenses. Okay, so I hope this is clear to some extent. Now you are clear with how we will be classifying all the expenses under different heads in the cost sheet. Tomorrow I'll start